Escaping is not about quitting from your job overnight. It's not about taking the risk that you cannot afford. It's about starting tiny. It's about designing your life on your own terms. It's about finding the people who's going to say yes to you when you have that crazy little idea. It's about doing things, knowing that you will fail. You still are going to try it. And gathering more and more people who's going to join you on this escape 9-to-5 journey. So today I'm going to talk about the lessons I've learned from hosting a podcast, Escape 9-to-5. It's almost 18 months. 25 episodes later, I've interviewed so many people who have left the traditional path and created their portfolio life. I've interviewed founders, investors, yoga teachers, people who are early on in their journey when they're in their 20s. The lessons I've learned are the things I wish I've known when I was 26. I've distilled them into one word, escape, E-S-C-A-P-E. Let's dive in. So the first letter, E, stands for experiment early and often. It was last year around February, this young girl, Michelle, shout out to her, she wanted to start her own podcast, so she reached out to me. She's like, can you be a guest on my podcast? And I was like, why not experiment? Maybe I should do my own podcast. And that's where Escape 9-to-5 came about. And that was a time when I was trying to figure out what's next for me. I need conversations like this for myself. 26 episodes, 25 conversations later, I realized every single guest have this moment. They picked an opportunity and then they thought, why not just experiment? Sometimes it's the first website. Sometimes it's a comedy show. Sometimes it's just that conversation with someone who may be able to give you an opportunity. They sometimes fail, sometimes succeed, but they will never be discouraged by the experiments themselves. I think there's a phrase in the startup community, fail fast and quick. And it's just a different way to say you can always experiment. When you have enough capital of experimenting, it would be way easier for you to start something new or start something that you're not sure about, because the minimum, it will be an experiment and a lesson learned for yourself. S stands for step into fear. Fear is a compass. The gut feeling is actually telling us how we should react. I remember when I was still in banking, stories after story when I heard from people when they feel physically, mentally not well, it's actually a sign for them to change. So for me, my personal story, now I have different perspective that I can share almost at ease. I wasn't really happy at my previous work already, but then life just gave me a push. It gave me the best lemon for me to make into lemonade. Luckily for me, I was able to realize that how much it has changed for my physical health, my mental health and everything. Even though every day is still tough, I don't feel like fear is restricting me, rather than fear is calling me to step into the fear, to do things that I wasn't able to do in the past, to experiment in a way that I would never able to imagine. The most recent anecdote was actually I went to Ali Abdal's meetup and then I was sitting there with a whole bunch of people. So I started there. I was like, if you're going to come to my first comedy show, I will actually do one. And you know what? Now we already have 8 signups. It's called Founder Mode with a Twist. It's about the story of how to be a female climate tech founder in 2025. And because I have experimented different things, I have experimented hosting different events. So this for me is not such a big leap. I was just talking to one of the early signups and she's like, I still cannot believe it. You're just going to do this based on a conversation because it's really inspiring. And she said, it's why the hell not? Exactly, why the hell not? So when I was in Canada, I met my cousin. I haven't met her for a long time. One is because of COVID and she moved to Canada to start her college years. I was so shocked to see that she's so ready to just step into fear. I asked her to sing in front of the camera. We were hanging around in the lakefront and she just sang like that. She's not even shy or afraid. I asked, I didn't know you're good at singing. And she's like, neither do I. Because my friends asked me to sing. There was something happened in school and she just went onto stage and sang. I was so proud of her. I thought of myself when I was in my early 20s. I would never dare to do that.
在黑夜的尽头，是你的捉弄和无声的伤痛。Will you still love me when I got nothing but my aching soul? Will you still love me when I'm no longer beautiful? Will you still love me when I'm no longer beautiful?
No. When the fear is calling you, my guests, they all have those moments. They have the fear. They don't know whether this thing is going to work. But instead of saying, yes, but I don't know how to do it, they almost always lean into yes, and how can I try it? So that's what makes the difference. One of my favorite quotes is from Derek Sivers. He says,
I had a rule of thumb ever since I was a teenager that says whatever scares you, go do it. Because then it won't scare you anymore.
And now it has become my inner monologue and mantra. Whenever I figure out something that's really tough and difficult that I don't know what to do, I would just have his quote replay in my mind. I hope that carries with you a little bit. C stands for create your own table. People always say that build a better table, but actually in a lot of the rooms, the tables are just not built for you. Almost all of the guests, they have shared this moment that they feel like they didn't fit in. They didn't feel like the space is created for them. They were not enjoying the work. They feel like they have more for them. And for me, I feel like sometimes the room is not designed for me, which is mainly because of my massive imposter syndrome, because of not confident enough in the past. So I created my own room, I created my own podcast, I created my own club, so that I also created a space for people who they maybe feel a little bit shy to come into the space. One of the guests, I read her book, Mac and Cheese Millionaire, and I invited her to the podcast. She used to be a corporate lawyer, and then she really didn't enjoy what she was doing, so she got fired. She eventually built a mac and cheese empire, and she also shared.
I think there's no magic secret to believing in yourself and having that confidence. If you're doing something you love, if you engage other people in doing stuff they love, if you really do the right things, you can create things that genuinely change the world. Our staff.
Create your own table is also this idea. Sometimes I feel like the world or the society, when it's not built for you, it could be many different reasons. Maybe it's culture, maybe it's just what the things are as a society. But you see all of these people who has escaped 9 to 5, and sometimes they end up working 24/7 for themselves. They're creating something that they enjoy, creating something that they like, creating something that they think it should exist. And that's where the most opportunity lies. I also have this mantra at the back of my mind is screw the table if it's not built for you. I went to a conference in Spain. It's one of the biggest structured finance conference. I was never able to imagine that one day I can get to present on the stage. But because of now, I'm building something on my own, I'm creating my own terms, I'm reaching out to people on behalf of my startup, I'm reaching out to people because I believe in the mission behind my startup. I get to pitch. I wasn't really scared. That really surprises me. Maybe that's the rep after rep of building my own thing and stepping into fear and not scared of going on stage, even though I thought I wasn't really fully prepared. Having those experiences and working in the way that I believe it's helpful for me, for my startup, for the people that I want to help, really helps me to be more confident, really helps me to believe in myself, because everything that I'm doing is in my own terms. A stands for assemble your tribe. So I started the podcast because I don't have a lot of people in my life who have escaped 9 to 5 journey. Something that's really life-changing for me was because I joined an accelerator last year, and that was the first time I surround myself with everyone who wanted to start their own thing, who was trying to do something. There's people who started their first business selling candies when they're 14. There are people who have built a business, who have failed, who have sold business, and who's looking for the next idea. I feel like I need just to replace my inner monologue, to replace those safe but stable voices at the back of my head. I remember Derek Sivers says,
You can deliberately just put yourself into different circles. You could go join a meditation group and a pottery class, or go down to some artsy center or whatever and just meet more people that have dropped out of the usual 9 to 5 race and befriend them and get to know them. And pretty soon you'll be in a group of friends where you're the only one that has a job. And it really helps shape your sense of possibility of the world. It helps you just see the world differently.
The idea, surround yourself with people who are also doing their own thing. And that reconfirmed when I went to Ali Abdal's meetup a few weeks ago. And he's like, doing these kind of meetup is just for people to find their weird tribe because...
Still friends with Johnny, who I met 3 years ago at your Hyde Park picnic. And I'm like, oh, nice. And like Johnny and I are accountability buddies and we have like weekly Zoom calls and stuff. You know, that is the sort of stuff that is disproportionately effective when it comes to kind of sticking it out on this journey.
Ali Abdal's meetup, it was always very nice because I met a whole bunch of people and it encouraged me to do my comedy night. One of the first encounter, I would say, when I had this idea of the pathless path, I need to give a shout out to Paul Miller, which is the early guest on my podcast. I reached out to him because he said, I hope you do because I'm always looking for more friends to join me along the way.
It's worth reaching out to people.
And I'm so glad that eventually I get to interview him on the podcast and I can just tap into that kind of mantra. And also I'm trying to share there's a different type of life that we can tap into. P stands for pair with rhythm. Why I'm saying that is escape isn't a black and white structure. It's not asking you to quit overnight and almost all the time, my guests would say that don't do that. Interview guests who are in different stage of their escape 9-to-5 journey. There's successful entrepreneurs and investors like Andrew Wilkinson. There is people, one of my favorite yoga teachers, so shout out to Arya. He just started his own yoga studio on the side because he has so many loyal students who supported him. And
what is your vision?
Just to help people. There is no point of achieving your goals, but your body is not supporting you anymore.
In the coming up episode, there's people who reach out to one of his favorite internet writers, provide part-time freelancer work, and eventually got the opportunity to join as a co-founder. There's so many different ways. Find out your own rhythm. I know that having a 9-to-5 job can be very exhausting, especially when you feel like something is wrong. It would be nice to have a rhythm. Amy Chantal.
The way I wrote my book while holding down a full-time job and being a mother to a toddler was I dedicated 15 minutes a day.
I think we all just need that 10 minutes on the side. The other thing I think is really helpful is a quote from Simon Alexander Ong. He has a book called Energize, so he mentions a lot of things about energy management, and which I agree a tons of. And he has this very useful mental model, which is...
You are. Now, if you enjoy what you do, it's not about work-life balance, it's about work-rest balance.
He also said...
Visualize in years, plan in months, execute in days.
And I also want to say, because there's always these compounding actions. When we start from scratch, it feels like nothing is possible. But as long as you're not going at zero, as long as you're improving 1% every day, there's always going to be compounding results waiting for you, not that far along in the future. And finally, is E. E stands for energy attracts energy. That's the best type of feeling I've ever got. The quickest way to find your people is actually to see how you feel after the interaction. So like Bob Mesta, a co-creator of Jobs to Be Done framework, shared on my podcast.
When you walk into a situation and you start talking about something and you end up with more energy than when you started, like that's something you should be doing. And if you actually walk into a situation and it literally sucks the life out of you, that's probably something you shouldn't be doing. So the first thing is most people think that work is supposed to actually have all of the things in it that make their life happy.
If you leave with more energy, do more of that. It's just such a helpful framework in our day-to-day life. It's so true. If you do something and you really enjoy it, just do more. I remember last year I arranged my first podcast that I did in the Drop conference in Sweden. I was reflecting at the beginning of this year and share with my friend what I really enjoyed. If I can do that for all my professional career, I'll be so happy. I just realized this year I have done way more than before. Similar concepts last year was just started off as an experiment. I always feel like when you're with the people that are similar to who you are. Recently I went to the Interesting People 3, which is a conference in Canada. I was so happy to be there. It almost feels like everyone has an interesting and curious side of them. They are very curious in meeting different people and understand who you are, what you're up to. And so I left feeling energized. Never have those feelings after any type of events. And I left feeling energized. I want to create that kind of space for people as well. All of these is just to say, if you find your own tribe, if you find your own energy, you can attract the right people. The right and begets energy actions creates more magic. So that's just today's video. So what does escape actually mean? It means experiment early, step into fear, create your own table, or assemble your tribe, pair action with rhythm, and let your energy lead the way. If you're in the 9 to 5 and wondering what can be next for you, start one pack that can help you to think differently, to break the mold this week. Reach out to someone that you admire and ask yourself, what does enough mean to you? Thank you for being here. Leave a comment. I would love to hear more about your Escape 9 to 5 stories. And there's a little quiz in the comments down below. You can take the Escape 9 to 5 quiz. I also start 2 newsletters. One is called the First 60 Days that I started based off of my layoff stories. And the other is called Sunday Not Blue. It's designed to share a little bit of helpful notes for Sunday so you are not going to feel that blue on a Sunday. And the idea is to eventually feeling happy on Sunday because you are excited for every single Monday. Actually, some people ask me about the podcast recording, what kind of tools that I use. I have all the links down below. I'm currently using Riverside. It's such a nice platform. They're definitely not sponsoring this video. It's ready to use, user-friendly. You can use my link. Do check it out. Having a podcast, having something that you can ask people to join you is one of the best ways to start. Also, shout out to my cousin. I'm actively looking to encourage her to step into the fear and do more what she loves. If you're a musician, if you have any advice about how to start small in Toronto, let me know. Get in touch.